Okay, we're on screen. So what we're doing right now is we're going to be showing each of the video games and other things that we've actually developed on the Atari computer. We just wrote a document that describes each of the games that we wrote back in the high school and college days. And we also were actually interviewed for a blog, an online blog, John Weisgerber, Robert, and me. So the final step is to kind of show some of the games and describe what we went through when we developed them. We're going to try and do them in somewhat chronological order so that you can see the progression of our techniques. And we'll describe kind of who was the lead programmer and what techniques they used. So this is the first game. There's an arcade game called Phoenix. And Phoenix has multiple screens and multiple levels. And one of the levels, you're shooting at these birds that are flapping their wings. There's multiple ones of them, like 6. They start out as eggs and you shoot them. Well, when we first got our Atari computer, they have special graphics modes that allow you to see different special character graphics. So Robert's the actual first one of us to develop an arcade game based on Phoenix, and of course you can see it's flickering like crazy. So every single frame he would redraw the entire screen. But it's pretty nice. I mean, the spaceship looks somewhat like a spaceship. The Phoenix bird looks great. It's flapping its wings and shooting at it, and it comes down after you shoot it. There's no scoring at all in it.
Actually, there is. I noticed looking at the code when I was taking screenshots, what you do is you shoot 10 of these different birds, and I think the score is based on how low it is or close it is to you or something like that. And then after you or maybe how many times you missed or something, but you do get a score after you shoot 10 of them. And it ranks you, which is kind of neat. And I think
you shot more than 10.
No, I haven't. It's close though.
Yeah, sometimes you have to refer back to the code to see what the heck it's doing.
There. Score 86, bird captain. And well, it just starts right up. You don't get to choose when you start the game. It just kind of starts right up. But it's funny too, is when you shoot, everything freezes. You know, the shot goes up and the bird stops. And like Eric said, every time it's drawing everything, so things are flashing all over the place. But it's actually multiple colors. This is developed in what's called graphics mode 1 in Atari Basic, which is a 40 by 24 text mode. And so each of these are just graphics characters called control characters, and what's called the ASCII character set that Atari's used. So we didn't redefine these characters. These are flat out of the box and available to use within the Atari. But anyway, it's just a basic game, and there it is.
So we got our computer in December, Christmas time of 1981. And so we're guessing this game was developed by early 82, something like that. But of course we taught ourselves how to program and everything. So this was a nice first step. So we're using an emulator called the Altera emulator. There are several emulators as of 2017 for the Atari computer. This one by far is the best. This is absolutely on cycle perfect. So anything that worked on the Atari computer works in this. So right now what we'll try and do is pick these games in relative order. So I'm going to say the Piracy 1 was the next game.
Yeah, this is probably the next game. We don't even remember anything at all about this game.
So Robert just, for part of the document, he ended up doing screenshots. So he knows better than any of us kind of what to do with this. But this game was written in Graphics 0. And I remember Robert, John, and I all worked on this. But this is Graphics 0, no redefined character sets. But that goes to Graphics 2.
The enemy rammed your ship. So let's see, how do we start all of it? There we go. Yeah, this is Graphics 0. This is a typical text mode of the Atari. It's 40 characters. Oh, this is 40 by 24. The previous one was actually 20 by, I guess, 12. This
No,
one's
20 by 24.
20 by 24. This one's 40 by 24, though, which equals 40 times 8 pixels is 320 by 192 is the Atari resolution. So anyway, there's all kinds of information up here about damage, torpedoes, treasure, and buried. All I know is it tells you where these things are, the lat and long.
So you gotta get close.
And I'm this arrow, I think, and I'm trying to get close to that thing. But I don't. When I push the fire button, it makes a sound effect like it's shooting, but.
We'll try and get this to 0-0. So this one's kind of fun. We're rediscovering this game with you. This one has a really funny story. So when emulators first came out, which was probably around 1995 or something, mid-90s, our Atari computer was still working. We still had all the floppy disks and everything. So Robert bought this tool called SIO 2PC. So the Atari's input-output is called the serial input-output, or SIO. And there was a way to convert that to the RS-232 that a PC used back then. And now PCs use USB. But Robert took all of our discs with all of our games and copied as many games as we had, but we were always missing 3 games. And the games were that Phoenix game we just had, Piracy 1, or just plain Piracy. You almost were there.
I know, but it didn't do anything. It's just a lower right corner of the quadrant, and then it wraps around.
So anyway, and then the other game that we were missing was what? Oh, the track program. So there are 3 programs that we were missing.
And Ramsey's Revenge.
Oh, and Ramsey's Revenge. It was kind of 4. But Robert had forgotten, he had copied the track program, but not the data file. So, but the other 3 games were lost forever. And we had developed, you'll see it in a minute, a game called Piracy 2 that was really actually pretty advanced for a basic game that used horizontal and vertical scrolling. And we knew there was a game called Piracy 1, because that's why we called that one Piracy 2, but we just couldn't remember the game at all, what it looked like.
Yeah.
So just recently, I got the SIO 2PC working again by getting a serial port to USB port adapter cable, and actually it was anyway. I had to splice wires together and got it to work. And
the best part of this game is the sound effect when you shoot.
Yeah, it's actually a decent sound effect. That's actually very. We probably stole that.
And I'm sure we did.
So you get negative $42.
I don't know. There's only ships running around represented by the circles, and then there's enemy ships. Enemy ships are that asterisk character, and I don't even know. When I shoot, you can't see the fire. You don't. You can only shoot when there's that other ship on, and you can run over this without dying. But I don't know what it gives you negative treasure when you do that. So I don't know if that's bad. But if you avoid everything, what's the point?
Yeah.
So I don't know.
So we would get this a 1 on the scale.
Every time you move, it lowers this fuel though, and you can run out of fuel. Every step you take, you can run out of fuel. But I don't know. The game. There's the enemy ship, and you can only shoot when he's on the screen. And if you run into him, there's 2 of them now. Then you die. That's all I know. The enemy ship can ram you, but I don't know how to really kill him. But that
was Piracy 1 that, again, we knew it existed, but we didn't remember anything about it. Now seeing it, and so we've only had this game for the last couple weeks now, is when I got that thing working and just on a whim decided to turn the discs around, the floppies, which actually were still readable after 30 years, which is amazing. And the backside of the disc had these 3 games that were missing: Ramsey's Revenge, Piracy 1, and the Phoenix game.
All right.
So anyway, next game we'll go to is Ramsey's Revenge, which we actually probably had a higher regard for that in our memories than it actually was.
That's a good game.
Okay, so I guess I have to run this.
No, it's initializing without any.
Oh, that's funny.
There's no telling you that it's initializing, so it takes about a minute.
There we go.
Okay, so it says 5,000 years ago, the Pharaoh Ramses was swallowed up by the Red Sea while in pursuit of Moses, who had freed the slaves of Egypt. However, before leaving the glory of Egypt, Ramses transferred transfer is spelled wrong. All of his power to the great golden keys, praying to the evil god Sept that they might remain safe, hidden in the sacred pyramid. Only now have you and another explorer stumbled onto this previously spelled wrong too, undiscovered pyramid. Will one of you recover the all-powerful golden keys, or will both of you fall victim to the curse of Ramses' revenge in reverse video?
So you can tell that these are early games, by the way, too, because later on you'll see a trademark Anschuetz Anschuetz logo on the first screen.
So this game we wrote, it's really a two-player game, but I'm playing it. I'm the player on the left here, and
Zoom in.
What you try and do is the player on the left and the player on the right use their two joysticks and race to the top of the pyramid. So it's a two-player game, really, but I can play it all by myself and try to get to the top of the pyramid.
So this one, I have complete memory of this. We probably wrote that the first year as well, probably 1982.
Yeah.
And I'd say almost for sure 1982.
When you collect a ring, so you try and get more rings than anybody else, and you can tell the graphics are pretty decent. And Eric will tell you in a second here about how we figured out redefining characters the day we wrote this game.
Yeah, so I remember it well. It was a weekend, I'm sure. But there were a lot of Atari magazines, Compute, Analog, Antic, that all had, and there was another game called Soft Side early on that I had forgotten about until recently, that had basic computer programs listed in the listings, and then you would type in the basic program, run it, and it would play a game. Well, one of the really neat features of the Atari computer was the fact that it had redefinable character sets, which meant that you could copy the character set from ROM to RAM and then just change the bitmaps of each of the characters. So what looks like a ring there may just be the character B. You know, you could pick any of the characters. There are 256 to choose from. Well, 128, and then 128 of those were inverse video or reverse video. But we typically would pick like the asterisk sign or whatever to redefine. And I remember, so we didn't know how this was done, but we knew the computer could do it. So there was a lot of steps in figuring out how to do it. But the day we figured out what was done, and you've got to do all these peeks and pokes and modifying memory locations of where the character set is, and figuring out how bitmaps even work, because we didn't really know that either. Each character is an 8-bit by 8-bit bitmap. So we ended up figuring out how to redefine characters and wrote this game literally the same day. So Robert's at the top of the pyramid now. He's going to get the key.
This is the best part of the game is the sound effects here.
And I bet we did that completely on trial and guess.
Oh, we did, I'm sure. We didn't know the notes or anything. So the funny thing is we had those misspellings in the introduction screen, but we did know how to put an apostrophe after an S.
I'm sure one of the last things we did, I'm sure, was the moon, which is kind of a cool redefined character. And the sphinxes are awesome.
The sphinxes are great. The keys down here when you get a key, the man figure, and all these, the bats and the mummy. And
the bricks just, by luck, if you define them a certain way, fitting those characters together, this end of one brick defines the start of the next. So you can really do a great brick wall.
So one thing we didn't do right here is that every time you move, you disappear. And when I was taking screenshots for that article, I noticed that you can jump right through a bat if you move right when it's on top of you. It's like the flaw in Pac-Man when you can go right through it sometimes. So watch this. See, I walked right through it. Because you disappear for a second instead of us doing that at the very end. All these games were built on a loop, and it depends when in that main loop you did things of how long the delay was. So we didn't do that right. But the game works, and it's, again, mostly a two-player game, but a pretty decent game that we had lost for 20 years, and glad we got it back.
Yeah, we had forgotten even the name of it. We were calling it the Pyramid game in the blog that we did. So now what's the next one we're going to do?
I don't want to miss any here.
So. Well, we did Cookie Climber
Yeah.
Oh, no, Cookie's Quest. That was another one.
Yeah, that's it. Well,
Cookie's Quest was before the other. It was published later.
Yeah,
but we wrote
I put the year it was published, but let's do it the year we wrote it. So, okay, this one.
Okay, so this is first of all, this is the first one that used our They used our trademark intro screen. Now we did a lot of work on this, and it depended how many characters were in the title screen
because we actually scroll it 4 pixels or not.
We actually would scroll the thing over. But we use graphics 2, graphics 1, and graphics 0. I mean, that's actually, it looks kind of plain, but that's an advanced technique to modify the display list to do that. The one thing that we didn't do, well, this one actually said one moment.
They added that. So this game was published by Antic Magazine, and they added that one moment, please. We didn't have that in there, and this is running the version that was published in Antic.
Yeah, there were a couple of games that we had that they did small changes to before they published them.
Okay, this skill level, expert or beginner.
Well, we'll do beginner because we're definitely beginners.
And then it still takes a few minutes to initialize. Okay.
So this game was our first game that we ever had published in a magazine. It wasn't the first one that we sold. The first one we sold was Cookie Climber, then Night Rescue. Then we sold this one. But this was the first one that was actually published. And this one has an amazingly smooth technique to scroll the screen. And I didn't even give this much thought. This must be a player.
It is, there. Because the only difference between the expert mode and the beginner mode is the expert mode puts in a non-transparent player on top of that map. We put the blue player to make a color, but that turns black if it's expert mode. So there's a map, and it is a game a little bit like Dungeons and Dragons, where you walk through a maze and you have to kill things. Now we have our original design sheets for this game. So you choose a weapon. There's 6
Let me zoom
weapons.
in on this.
3 of the weapons, you swing your weapon like close to your body, and then 3 of them you shoot things like knife and lightning bolt and fireball. You shoot. So I'm going to choose a weapon. I'll choose a sword here, and so I'm the happy face, and that's wow. Something happened. Okay, there's my sword going to my left and right. And this is modeled after a game called Venture, an arcade game. Come on. You got to get right next to this thing, and it's flashing all around, and you got to time it when it's not flashing, I guess.
You only have to use the sword when it's within 3 characters of you.
Yeah, I know, but it's jumping around so much, you don't use this. Okay, so what happens then when you lose? I guess, so when I'm done with the room, it puts that donut hole in there.
Yeah, that's right.
And I think you have to clear out 3 rooms. I'm going to use a fireball this time. You have to clear out 3 rooms. Oh, dang it. You got to clear out 3 rooms to advance down the stairs, or else you're trapped in here forever. So, okay, I'll use a lightning bolt.
This one was funny, this game, because they published it and they did this amazing artwork to make this game. You just ran into the wall.
I know.
This game, the artwork made it look like it was such a great game. It must have been a big disappointment to anyone who spent that time to type it in. But it really actually had very smooth scrolling techniques for graphic 0 and redefined characters. It really,
oh shit, it went right through it.
It really looked nice.
I remember John Weisgerber developed the string manipulation to scroll those bricks, and that we were stuck on that for a long time. We put this game down and didn't finish it for a long time, I remember, because the scrolling didn't work right. Come on. But you got to hit them multiple times, and each weapon
has
different times you have to hit it. Like this one, I might
stay in the corner. That's the safest place because it can't come around your back.
But you can't shoot down, by the way. You got to shoot left or right.
Oh yeah.
Oh, dang it! I forgot you can run into the walls.
I did too. I didn't remember that either.
So that D means down, and I think I'm going to be stuck in here forever, unfortunately. I think the ones that you do close to your body. Oh shoot. Oh,
I changed it.
It went down. Yeah, it went down low. The first level, you don't have to kill anybody.
So there's a D and a U. The U means you can go up the steps, and the D is down. But anyway, it was a decent game for back then, especially. You know, this.
So you try and get those treasures in the room before the monster does, and that again is very similar to Adventure. Okay. But this game was our first published game, so this is really, and each thing you shoot is a different character. Oh, come on. That thing moves around so fast.
Oh,
I'm gonna just go get this ring.
there.
I
There you
did
did
it.
it. So when you clear a room, you can't tell the difference.
No, you have to just. Now it says lives, level, treasures equal 2, I guess. But anyway, you have to count in your head, I guess, how many of these.
But the movement of those bricks is just really, really smooth and good.
Ooh, I got it.
He's using the sword, so you got to be right next to him.
Ah, he jumped in there. Okay, let's go to the next one.
Okay, now we're gonna have to. We'll probably.
This is our first multicolor game, by the way.
Yeah,
Blue and black.
multicolor.
Blue and black.
So let's do Cookie
Climber.
Climber and then Night Rescue.
So Cookie Climber was the first game we sold, like I said,
this
for $400.
This one that used the scroll register for the Cookie Climber was scrolled over 4 pixels. Yeah, so we sold this one actually for $400. It was the first one we ever sold. Second one was Night Rescue, but
we were 17 years old, I remember, because
Yes.
the letter we wrote.
We sold this one before we graduated from high school, which was pretty impressive.
So this game was copied after a game called Crazy Climber with C's, and ours is Cookie Climber.
This is really good. So you can see the flower pot on the left and the closing windows. Really an excellent, go left. Really an excellent game. Okay, so yeah, one little story about, you can see when his body scrunches up when he's walking. I do remember that too. For whatever reason, that was a mistake at first, but it turned out that actually looked right.
Oh, no.
Yeah, if that window closes to the point where it touches your hand, you'll lose.
And the technique I read in our article for detecting that collision is your hands are separate players.
Yes.
And so your body is 1 8 by 8.
Because your body can touch the yellow.
Yeah, but right.
Oh, there's a floating dumbbell. So yeah, the Atari computer had hardware collision detection. There were 4 what they call players or sprites, and then there's also 4 2-bit pixels, missiles.
Oh, we're getting there.
So the only difference between this and the real Crazy Climber is there's no helicopter. You could just go.
Oh, there was a little flash there.
Yes, if you saw the flash, that was in BASIC crossing a page boundary. We had to poke the screen memory address, and you had to poke the most significant byte and the least significant byte. Well, obviously there's a little bit of delay in there, and that's when the screen flashes.
The different colors are different, and on the second building, the screen colors are different.
Yeah.
And the things come down faster. That dumbbell's falling faster than it was before.
And it's a really
and the windows open and close.
It's a really advanced technique. When you're scrolling, that dumbbell has to obviously scroll even faster. So
right,
they're just flash.
Yeah.
But so the physics are right. This is our first game that really used players, and there luckily in Compute Magazine there was a great.
I'm gonna fall on purpose, and show what happened. Yeah. Or either, well, no, I won't. Yes, I will. Boom. See, now it goes. It scrolls down really fast to get you the bound on the screen, but you got to start all over.
Anyway, there was a great routine that they would put as a user-defined assembly language code. And there was a spot in the Atari memory, they call it page 6, which is the 600 page or 6 times 256 bytes.
600.
So it's 1536 is the actual decimal address. You could safely put a 256 byte assembly language routine, and you used a routine or a command called USR to call that routine. And there was a Compute article that had not only a way to fairly easily define players, but to also define their vertical and horizontal position. On the Atari computer, the horizontal position is real easy for players. That's just a register. But the vertical position is really tricky because your player could be the whole screen high, and to change the vertical position, you literally had to move bytes and everything. Well, this routine that we found did that automatically for you. And so we kind of stole that routine, and it also allowed you to pick like characters or players that would show an animation. So our player that's climbing is an animation, the spinning dumbbells an animation, and the flower pot is just coming down straight.
One thing you might notice is there's no score on the screen while you're playing it, but after you complete the building, then your score pops up, and it reminds you of how many climbers are left. So I guess we just didn't. We could have reserved some spot at the bottom for that, but we didn't. But
you should have had a sound effect when you were falling. But.
Yeah, well, we had a lot of trouble adding any sound effects during any animations because the loop that we used was so. It was difficult to play a song during a loop because it wasn't really timed right in anything. But anyway, let's go to the next one.
So this game really, for its time, was really advanced. Well, first of all, from our perspective, for high school,
game over.
For high school kids doing this, that was pretty advanced. And for its time, this game was really good compared to other things that you would type in. Really good game. So here's the second one we sold, Night Rescue, and we had a funny article to the magazine on this one, and we said, "Oh, this one's a lot better than Cookie Climber, so we should be getting a lot more than $400 for it."
Yeah, and our friend John Weisgerber said that he ended up in an argument with one of the legal person at that Compute magazine, saying, "Look, you're going to either have to take this or leave it. We pay $400, and that's it." So we finally took the $400. But this is another game. Cookie Climber and Night Rescue were never published in Compute, and in fact, they even wrote us a letter a year later or so saying you got your rights back to sell it to any company you want because we're not going to publish it. So I don't know what.
And this was a really okay. Right. So what happened was the camera stopped recording. So we're starting Night Rescue over again.
Okay, so Night Rescue was our second game that we sold. It was another $400, and
go ahead.
Let me press start here. So this game we thought was a lot better than Cookie Climber, and certainly it was. And we were trying to get more than $400 out of Compute, but they eventually said no, take it or leave it, and of course we took it. So this game, you're a balloon and you try and rescue these. God, this is hard because it's got this inertial movement. So if you push down on the joystick, it keeps going down faster and faster. So you try and rescue these guys down here while ultimately trying to get to the right of this city and land at the landing spot. But there's these everything's in the way. There's this plane in the way. There's these helicopters in the way. I'm not worrying about getting the guys so much, but I just want to get to the right. Okay, so the blue guys at the bottom are the humans that we're rescuing. You can scroll left and right. That's kind of a unique feature that not a lot of. Oh God. Oh. So one thing I want to show you is if you hold the fire button down, you move your balloon, but the scrolling doesn't move. But you have to use that technique to get these guys right here.
And just let yourself slowly go down there.
Forget it.
You didn't have to get all three.
I know, I'm not going. But anyway, that's an example of how.
Oh, we're lucky. We mercifully didn't put a helicopter up there.
Okay, so there's our German flag. Let's talk about this a little bit.
Yeah.
So when we initially wrote this game, we had a Nazi flag there, and we had also a Nazi tank instead of this tank over here. It had a Nazi symbol on it. But when we said we're going to publish this, we said we might not want to have a Nazi flag on there. Although a game like Castle Wolfenstein, I think he had Nazi flags in it. But we changed it to the black, red, and yellow flag of modern-day Germany. So we didn't offend anybody, I guess.
So this is another one of those games that you notice how multicolor this game is. So this is an area you can go in the tunnel or on top of the tunnel, and both are really hard. But
starting over.
This game is using a special Antic, which is a graphics chip for the Atari, graphics text mode that has multiple colors, 4-color text and slightly lower resolution. It was half the resolution, so it was basically like a 20 by 40 or 20 by 24 text mode, but with a lot of colors. Anyway, it was.
I'd say at the end of the day, this was our best game. It had no flaws in it. It was actually challenging. It's really hard to get to the end, as you can see now, but I'm not very good.
I can do better.
But it's.
Let me play.
It was definitely challenging.
Let me play this thing.
Okay, let's see how good he is. It's the inertial movement that's so hard. And also we're playing with a keyboard, not a joystick. So we had tons of redefined characters on this. To put all this together, all these, yeah, he's a lot better, F2. All these redefined characters for the buildings, the helicopters, the tanks.
Plus it was about 4 screens wide.
At least 4 screens. We have the map for this as well, but that's why we gave you 6 balloons, I guess, to get through this. One thing I remember doing and coding was that airplane movement, which is kind of a sine wave movement. I think when we first initially programmed that, we wanted to use some neat features of BASIC and actually used a sine formula. And then we realized, well, maybe we should just have it go up and down, like every step forward. I think the actual algorithm was every 2 steps forward, it went up 1 pixel, and then when it hit a top limit, it reversed the direction. So we just did a simple formula, but it's, the end result is basically a sine wave, but we didn't have the calculation to go through the sine wave. So there's that cave you can also go through. You can get more points in the cave by all those guys that you rescue, but it's more dangerous up top. Yeah.
There's a helicopter.
We were a lot better when we were 17 playing these games, I guess.
Well,
I remember one thing at the very end we did too was reversing the direction of those helicopters. When you went left and right, the helicopters turned left and right. We used to have them, they would go like backwards, and we thought that looked stupid. So we actually changed that at the last minute. I think that was one of the last things we did.
There we go.
So he's getting near the end here. And you land on a platform at the very end. Of course, if you really want to play this game for points, it takes you a lot longer. There's the platform.
Now you got to scroll. Oh,
yeah. You got to fine scroll and rough scroll all the way to the right. And you got to softly, gently land.
There, I think I'm going to
do it. That's from Eagle, where you had to softly, gently land. So anyway, that's great. You got through a stage. Now what happens here, I think, is the plane goes faster. And that might be about the only difference.
Yeah, that was pretty tough.
The plane just moves faster up there. But yeah, this is a great game. Unfortunately, it never was published, but good thing in 2017 we released it to the public and several people have downloaded it. And one person...
This one wasn't released before then?
No, this was never released.
Which games were released? It was Sokoban and...
Sokoban and I think maybe Yahtzee and the 3 games that were published in the magazines. Overflow, Cookie's Quest, and Pirates and Robot Dungeon. And then I think, in addition to that, the 2 games that you wrote at the very end.
Oh, and then it put me on top. Anyway, I was trying.
That's interesting how it puts you on top. We probably couldn't figure out exactly where you're putting you.
Anyway, it uses a fairly small screen to save memory, but really a well done game. So.
Yeah, I think that's the best game we ever wrote. 'Cause for colors, like if you took a screenshot of that, it looked like a neat game. The other ones look like blocky, chunky.
Oh, I better do Robot Dungeon 2017.
Yeah. Well, you're not going to get through all 1,200 rooms anyway. So this game we wrote, it was published in Antic. We sold it to Antic. They didn't publish it in the magazine, however. They only put
Right,
it in
I'm still
the disc bonus. And let's see, walk through walls of monsters. Let's say no. Eric added this kludge at the end.
Yeah, I had to reprogram this game this year. I didn't have to reprogram it.
Okay.
D:"Dungeon.dad, I think.
And okay. All right. So now it's loading in.
I'm actually pretty good at this game too.
It's loading in the maze. So the maze here was used from an algorithm out of creative computing that John Weisgerber found, and it's really a hexagonal maze. And the maze goes from like the lower left to the upper right, and we have a 20 by 20 maze on each level. So this room is one of those hexagonal.
But this is a 5x5.
Oh yeah, thank God.
See how it says 5x5?
Yes. So this game's a lot like Berserk or another game for the Atari 800 called Seamus that we had as well. But you're trying. You can shoot these guys. You shoot the blue ones, and the light blue one there you can't shoot.
Anything's the same color as the background wall, you don't shoot. So I'm just kind of going blindly through this maze right now.
You can map it out, and we suggested people to map it out. But those other characters in there, like that infinity sign, gives you an extra person to get through the maze. But this game was really, really good, and again, it was bought by Antic and published in a disc bonus. Now that was an extra 10 people, I think, that one symbol.
There's coins.
So you get so there's room numbers down here that corresponds to the 5x5. So he's pretty close to the upper right, which was room 25, I guess.
Yes.
So he's in room 22 now. But now, as in any maze, you could be sent all over the place to get to that last room. So who knows where he really is in this 5x5 maze. Now that thing's a bad thing. That takes you back to the very beginning. That black tunnel hole. If you hit that, you go back to the very beginning, and you lose a life. We made it a double thing. I remember the algorithm for these robots. They actually approach the character. Every step in the loop, they figure out where the character is in relationship to them, and they take a step closer horizontally and vertically. So they all are kind of chasing you. Of course, they hit walls and they get stuck there, though. That's great, though. Every room has a different color to it. It's really neat.
The colors are based on what's kind of in the room, so it's consistent. John Weisgerber figured out how to use one bit, one byte described what was in the room, because it would whether it had like a diamond or a...
Oh my God, you're in room number 2, by the way, so you're way down in the lower left again. But I think you kind of go straight. Whoa! I don't know how you live it. He's using a technique that you use in Berserk a lot. If there's too many enemies when you first enter a room, you turn around, leave the room, and then go back in it. This game plays really, really well. I mean, it plays like a Berserk. I think what was the mistake we made was we made it a 1,200 room maze instead of a 75 room maze like this version is. 5x5 for each level. And once you get through the level, the really neat thing is it plays an animation. It shows you going down the stairs to the next level, and then at the very end of the game, it shows you leaving the dungeon with all these characters chasing you. It's very similar to the scene in Pac-Man where the players chase you. So we added some cartoons, some cut scenes in this. It was a really.
So I want to actually do that. Let's restart this one and pick the thing to go through the walls.
Okay, yeah, that's a good idea. No instruction. We wrote a lot of instructions. Antic Magazine added that feature to view the instructions as a player. We had them printed out as part of an article, but they actually incorporated the instructions as part of the game. I remember when we decided the name Dungeon.dat with D-U-N-J-I-N, it was because we didn't know if there were 8 characters in a file name or 6. 8.3 or 6.3, so we just said let's call it Dungeon with a J.
So just when I was rewriting this game this year to make it so that it would have a variable size maze, there's a second program to this, by the way. It's called Dungeon Creator. You had to actually create the dungeon using a different program. Anyway, see if you can get through this.
Okay.
Well, I'm filming. So I figured while I was reprogramming it, I might as well, like, I want to see the end of each level. So I make sure you're only touching one color at a time when you're doing that diagonal thing. Like if you're touching blue and black,
I know what you mean, yeah.
It wouldn't detect it.
I forgot about that flaw. Now, do I go left or I think I'm going to
Well,
go
I
left
had this.
because you went right. Oh no, that's a dead end. So
Yeah.
so far, there's only one way to go.
So I just added this so that I could get to the end myself. This cheat. And there's only one reason. Don't touch that black thing though. You get. But the playability on this is good. It's very difficult. It was downright impossible to get through.
Oh, yeah, and another thing it had is a save game and a pause game feature, which is unheard of. I can't believe we put a pause feature in here, but it also has a save game. I think I'm about...
You don't have to, you can go...
Oh, I can go right through, yeah.
The one thing that I regret is that we didn't, well, the biggest regret is that we had it such a big maze. And it was so hard to change. Okay, now that zapper
That's
in the middle.
super zapper.
Yeah, you hit the super zapper.
They all die, including the bad guy you can normally not kill.
So anyway, I regret making it so that you couldn't select the size of the maze.
There we are.
Here's the very end. So he's going to hit the staircase and watch the animation.
And see, I'm hands off here. But this isn't even the best animation. It's pretty good, but the one at the end of the game when the robots are chasing.
Well, you can probably get to that one. I mean, it's not that much longer.
All right.
These are scenes that no other eyes except for us have ever seen.
Yeah, because no
one would have ever made it to the end.
There's a super zapper.
Yeah, decent background music. I mean, at least something.
Yeah, at least.
I wish we had animated the guy too.
Yeah,
that at least he was walking.
Yeah, we didn't animate the guy.
And that would have been pretty darn simple to do.
Yeah, I don't know why we didn't do that, honestly, because we had known all those techniques at that time. I don't know why we didn't. Yeah, you got to avoid that.
But it was great that each room only took one byte of memory to describe what was in the room.
And I love the colors. Yeah, they're all different colors. I got to map this in my head because I hit a dead end there. And we called this robot Dungeon. As it turns out, Cookie's Quest, the first kind of game we sold was published. We had originally called that Dungeon Quest. So I think we liked the name Dungeon. So we brought that back for Robot Dungeon. God, I got to go all the way back to the beginning. I think this was the first room.
You're room 31, which is room 6 or whatever. You guys subtract.
Yeah, because they're number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Oh God, now I got a couple choices here. So unless you're mapping it, you have no idea.
Just keep going to the upper right.
Yeah,
that's the bottom.
The right-hand room. I went right through there.
Yeah, because you touched them at the same time.
Hopefully, is this room 48? Hopefully this is the end.
49, yeah, so that's 50. This has got to be it. Yep. Okay, so he's got one more to do after this. Yeah, I love the colors. So the same animation as before. He's done. This would have made the game so much more playable if you could do 5 by 5.
I know.
But it's so funny because John Weisgerber had borrowed this code for this hex maze generation. There was, I don't know if the original code was stuck at 20 by 20 or not. It probably was.
Oh.
Because there were so many hard-coded things that were based on the 20 by 20. It made it very difficult to convert it to work with any number by any number and make it work. There were so many. Well, all of our code was obfuscated too because memory saving techniques and whatnot meant that our code was completely unreadable. So it was very difficult 25 years later to go back, or 30 years later to go back.
There's a couple of these things. So just to reiterate the cheats that we're going through, one's not a cheat. This is a 5x5 maze. That's not really a cheat, but the fact that I'm going right through all this and not shooting, that's the cheat that is enabled, because we don't want to tape for 3 hours getting through even this 75 room maze. Oh, there's a treasure chest.
Yeah.
I'm in room 72. And
Yeah, it's out of 75, so.
yeah, so I'm getting there. Hopefully.
Good. I think you'll be there, because this will be 74, and hopefully there's
an exit to the right.
Exit to the,
No, God. So I got to go down and up and.
Yeah, it's literally the.
There it is. No, it's not. Hopefully this will have an up and I'll be in.
Yeah,
that'll be it. So it'll be right above me, and we're figuring that out because of these room numbers here. Okay, here's the end of the game.
So this one has a key instead of a staircase.
Okay, now
Again,
watch this.
the first humans ever to see this.
And here's the name of the maze was put in here, 5x5.
And look at the timing of this, how these robots are exactly behind you, and then you get out and they don't.
And the thing, you made it. And the funny thing too is that we made our guy jump 8 characters at 8 bits at a time, just like these guys, even though that was a real player. It could have been smooth.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's it. End of that game.
Okay.
On to the next one.
Yeah, that was a really good game.
You might want to stop and reset.
We'll do one more.
Okay. Oh, I gotta.
What's the next game we'll do?
Okay.
Oh, we can do Alien Assault. I mean, that was
Yeah.
an earlier game. But
Yeah.
okay, then we'll stop it and. Okay, this game was called Alien Assault.
And yeah, this game we had lost for 20 years as well. We had it on our disc, but it would never run with these emulators, and we were always like, what's going on with this thing? And then Eric figured out that the reason why it wouldn't run with our disc drive or an emulated system is because it overwrote sections of Atari DOS. So there was no hope that we could ever get it running on our disc drive, even though we had it on a disc, and it wouldn't work with these emulators. So the first thing I tried after figuring that out, I found this weird emulator that allowed you to save a version to cassette, and then another emulator, this Altera emulator, could load the cassette image, and I was actually able to see it and play it. But Eric took a step further and actually rewrote the code and avoided those memory addresses, and so here it is. So
Again, there
it's
was
a good game.
way easier said than done to make this thing change. Anyway, you had to reserve a section of RAM top at the top of memory to put your redefined characters and your players.
So I'm going to describe the gameplay a little bit. It says west, and that means that the missile's to your left. And so I'm going to the left. There he is. There's only one missile at a time, but it can be off the screen. So now it says east, and I got to go chase it down before it hits one of my... What happened? I guess it...
I don't know. Oh, there you go.
Oh, I finished the set, and now it's a different color. So this game reminds me a little bit of Missile Command. If you imagine that thing coming down as a missile and trying to hit the bases, and you've got this thing with the crosshairs and the shot, and that obviously was influenced by Missile Command. And the other thing is, we've got different colors for each set and everything. But it's also a little bit like Moon Patrol, and we have these parallax scrolling. These things go faster. These satellites go faster in the background when they scroll. It is a pretty decent game, actually.
Yeah, I agree. We tried to sell this, but we don't know what. Obviously, we didn't get it sold.
We wrote an article about it, but we don't have any of the rejection letters that we normally have for some of these games. So I don't know what happened, but maybe they had a disk drive and couldn't run it.
Yeah, it probably was.
Yeah, well, hey, this game doesn't work. Too bad they didn't see it.
So you're running out of energy now. You only have...
Yeah, because you only have a certain number of shots, too. So I'm gonna run out of energy and see what happens. Okay, game over.
Okay, so after this game, I'm going to pause the film or start a new film.
Okay, we'll load up the next game. All right.
Okay, so right now we're bringing up Space Assailants.
Okay, this game was written primarily by John Weisgerber, and this has got some amazing techniques for Atari Basic. First of all, it's 2 screens, and you're alternating 2 screens. One screen are the stars in the background, which are basically equivalent to the enemy shots in the game, and the other screen are the aliens that you're trying to shoot. It's like Space Invaders. So another thing, we always tried to name our games with enough hint that you knew exactly what it was, but the other hint was, slightly different. So Space Assailants.
I'm really good at this one too.
Okay, go ahead. Space Assailants and Space Invaders. So the first set that you're playing only has 1 row of invaders. Again, the left and right bars that say Space Assailants, those are 1 player each. And then we do a collision detection, and it turns these guys around when you do that. But you can't really tell by looking at it. Maybe you can on the video. I'll be interested to see what this looks like, if it's really flickering or not. But it doesn't look too flickering right now. But we're really toggling between 2 different displays, the enemies and the stars. And if you get hit by a star, you lose. And there's up to 6 rows of aliens. Once you go through 5 different sets, the 6th set is a row of.
Well, then it goes back to 1.
And it goes back, but faster.
It goes way faster. I did it. I did it the other.
So the sound effect in the background, that annoying kind of, it's a technique we use in a lot of games.
One line of code.
It's one line of code to play a sound that has a warbling effect. So it sounds like it's going wow, 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 but in reality it's just one sound. And we stuck that in a lot of our games because you just played that sound effect and let it go, and that was your background music. It's better than nothing, because otherwise the only sound we've got is the blip when you shoot or when you hit somebody. We don't even have a we don't even have a sound when you shoot.
So as far as we know, this technique was never used in another Basic game. I can't imagine anyone else doing this in Basic.
This game was submitted to, I think, Analog, and they rejected it.
Go ahead and
They rejected it because they said that it flickers too much, and we have enough shooting games to keep us busy for the next 5 years or something like that. But it was
this game probably is as good as Atari Space Invaders when it first came out.
Yeah, absolutely.
Atari Space Invaders was not very good.
The invaders themselves don't smooth scroll, but even in the real Space Invaders in the arcade, they didn't really smooth.
Ours are multicolor, and they're going back and forth. And I remember that we put that little saucer coming down as a nice way of making it easy to determine if you got killed by them, because that'll hit you when it comes down and you'll collide with it. So it's
I'm not sure, was that it, or was it, did we set it when it reached
That's what I remember.
Level?
I remember that.
What if you're over here?
Then I don't think you'll get killed, but you're going to be eventually boxed in.
The stars keep coming up right now.
I don't think you'll be killed, but you'll be boxed in and you won't be able to move.
That's possible.
And then eventually, well, I think that's what happens.
So there's only 3 different types of aliens, and they repeat. The first 3 rows repeat for the next rows. But there was a funny story. Eric tried to make the ship movement smoother with an assembly language routine, but apparently when John Weisgerber disabled the vertical blank interrupt to show 2 different screens, it disabled the timing where he could have put the assembly language.
Yeah, you normally put the assembly code during the vertical blank interrupt.
So
I was stumped on that one. I was like, why isn't this working? I got it to work before on other games. And then I realized that it was because he had changed this register that disabled the vertical blank interrupt. So it's not a smooth scrolling ship at the bottom. At one point it was working great, but not with the interlay stuff.
But the funny thing, you can play this game just like you play Space Invaders in the arcade. The same techniques I use there.
Yeah.
You shoot and then move over a split like an inch. You move and so I use the same exact techniques. This game looks a lot like the Atari Space Invaders for the 2600 too.
Yeah.
Because the characters looked a lot like this. In fact, I think some of the characters were modeled after the Atari 2600 Space Invaders.
Okay, let's go to the next one. So you notice that Robert and I are both wearing Michigan hats today. So this is the first game of the season. Michigan's playing Florida, kind of in a kickoff classic. Normally they don't play that. Piracy Overflow, yeah. Yeah, we got to kind of pick up the pace here. We're not going to watch or miss the.
Okay, this game was another.
Oh, they changed it.
Yes, they changed it. This game was the third game that we published. Maybe not. They wouldn't have put that in there. The screen is different than all of our other screens. I think the original one didn't even have a title screen, possibly. But anyway, this game was the third one that was sold to a magazine, and was the third one published. No, the second one published in the magazine. After Cookie Climber, this was published. And
after Cookie's Quest.
Cookie's Quest, then Overflow, then Robot Dungeon. Yes. So this game's got that weird sound effect.
John Weisgerber wrote this one virtually by himself, or probably all by himself.
Yeah, so we're trying to keep these pipes from coming into this middle section. So you got to turn the direction, and you only have one shot at a time, so I'm going to die. So when one of these pipes hits the middle row, it overflows and you die.
Yeah, the playability of that's a lot like the game your root beer float or what?
Yeah, root beer tapper.
Root beer tapper.
It is. You try and just keep this thing under control, and it's really a hard game. And it's got very few lines of code. The other technique John used on this is that all these blue bars are actually the same exact
screen memory.
Screen memory. Now it's just a block basically, or a line of blocks. So it wasn't anything pretty, but it could have been something else, I guess. But same screen memory. Just every 8 scan lines or so, he just reuses that same screen memory. So anyway, I don't know how it was published. The game, but it was published, and it was a.
Yeah, John said that he remembers they were commending him on how good a game it is for such a few lines of code.
So you throw the plunger. Okay, so let's play another one. Maybe either Kooky Diver is probably kind of the next one. Okay, so these games were all written over like a 3-year period, and we got better and better each year. And we're kind of trying to do this chronologically. So you can see that some of the techniques we use have been reused on certain games. And I'll let you play this game and talk about it. So the games got better too at the end of the day.
So this game is a weird one. I had a dream of this game, or thinking about this game overnight. And I literally woke up in the morning, and we actually have the original drawing, my original drawing for it, which is darn close to what the game ended up being. And I programmed it in one day. So literally from dream or vision of it to the final version was one day. Well, I may have done a couple small tweaks, but it was 95% done that first day. So basically you come down and there's a clam at the bottom, and you got to get different treasures. So the first treasure is a pearl, and you've got a certain amount of oxygen. The pearl doesn't weigh a lot, so it doesn't use up a lot of oxygen to swim up the screen, but you got to basically get to the top and deposit the item on the boat.
You have to touch the boat.
Once you get below 50 oxygen at the top, it'll replenish your oxygen. So
if you're at the top.
If you're at the top. So those are actually supposed to be a school of piranha fish there, and obviously using Atari
and a shark
8-bit things and a shark. So we'll see what the next object is.
Oh,
well,
okay.
If the clamshell shuts on you, you'll die. You fall to the bottom. Oh, see,
like that.
And
this game also, if you let go of the joystick, you start sinking. So there's stuff going on all the time, even if you're not touching the joystick.
There's a little gravity like in Night Rescue. So let me get the. So I used a display list interrupt at the bottom to change the color to green of the scoreline, and also change the character set back to ROM, so that I wouldn't have to worry about saving these characters from redefinition. So I might have had O redefined at the top, and it didn't matter because when I used it at the bottom, I used the original ROM character set.
You can hear the annoying background music that we put in all these games.
Golly.
I think everyone there, and now you might have to stop on one of these coral reefs.
Oh no, so my oxygen's going way down, way down, way down. Oh, I died.
So you can stop.
This was this really, Robert pointed this out, that it actually still kept going and your score changed to.
Now the boat stopped up there at the top, but the players and missiles kept going.
There's
But-
probably a flaw. But
Probably, but it toggle back.
it
and
actually
forth.
was a flaw. I forgot. I used a vertical line interrupt, a horizontal line interrupt to make these things move, and
Yeah, it's
that's
still
why they're
going.
moving so smoothly. But anyway, it's a decent little game. There's probably 10 different treasures that you can get, and what I was attempting to do was take that treasure and set it on one of these reefs here, which you can do that, and then you use less oxygen so you can go up to the top to get more oxygen, and I'll do it here just as an example, even with the pearl, which doesn't use much oxygen. It's just completely random when the clamshell opens and closes.
But it opens and closes more the more levels you get through. Oh God.
Yeah, I'm not an artist, but drawing these things was kind of fun too. Okay, so I'm below 50 on oxygen, so that's running a little low. So what I'll do is I'll go here, and this will automatically drop it off.
Then you can go
And
back.
now I'm using much less oxygen by not swimming with it. Once I get to the top, I'll have my oxygen replenished because I was below 100, and then come back down. You can leave it on the left or the right. In practice, the two ones on the right are the ones that you normally would use. There's a certain treasure.
Oh, you dropped it.
I accidentally dropped it. So.
You either accidentally dropped it or it was
No, I touched it because I touched it. The conditions were to drop it off, which is just that you swim over the yellow. So one of these things is so heavy you've got to,
Yeah.
like an anchor or whatever, that you got to drop it off somewhere else. So I don't even remember trying to sell this. We might not have, but
No, we did. We got the rejection letter. For it.
I don't know why. That was a darn.
I know.
good thing.
It said it's much too simplistic. Is what the rejection letter said.
I don't agree.
I know. Okay, let's move on quick here. So, Piracy
Piracy
2.
2.
Because that's that one game.
Oh,
I
yeah.
had to use this
Yeah.
to boot it. It's looking for an artist 232 to buy. But that's a long story. But so anyway, this game was Piracy 2, named after the Piracy 1 that was really primitive looking. This one was really good. It had horizontal and vertical fine scrolling in BASIC, and it had 3 different types of games. One game when you're navigating around the islands, and then you land on an island and you have to shoot a pirate, and then you get on an island and you have to dodge these pirates. And we might not have time to go through all of that, but we'll see how.
So one of the problems, you can see it right now with the games that we wrote, is when you're copying all the ROM character set to RAM, when you're loading up all the player missile graphics, all that stuff, setting up the graphics takes so long, and we don't have any status bars showing the progress. So it's a little bit a leap of faith here. But this is another game that I don't remember anyone ever having a fine scrolling, horizontal, vertical fine scrolling in BASIC. Now all that code to do that was written in assembly language. And we didn't have an assembler, so I hand assembled that. I think I was the one that did most or all of the assembly language code. I don't know if anyone else really did it,
No.
but I've got all my original notes. You got to get square to the table. You sit in the chair so you can see where you're aiming.
This is hard. This is so random because you shoot a real slow shot, and then you have to. Hopefully that gets them. Oh God, 1 pixel away.
Yeah, this is really hard. So this is a ship shooting cannonballs, taking advantage of the fact that, oh, you missed it, Nick. Well, we'll see how long it...
Gosh, too bad he moved. I would love to get. All you got is. This is the hardest one because once I get this, I can.
Get it. Oh.
Shoot.
I'm better than that.
It's
way too over.
I'm just gonna let him move because he's gonna move in a second anyway. Oh God, I can't. How many lives do you get? 10?
I don't know. I go all the way. Go that. This isn't a game to be fast. You gotta line it. There, got it.
Okay. Now that I got it, so I'm going to demonstrate a little bit of scrolling around, which is amazing again. So now there was a little pirate ship guarding that island, and now he's
But go
gone.
down
Now
to
I land on the island.
well,
No, I'm going to go through this part now. And then the third part of this game is trying to wander through this maze of pirates that move all over the place. And there's a pattern to this, but it's so hard. I had to figure it out the other day to take a screenshot. Oh my God, I'm doing it. I did it.
Yeah, you did it.
That is so hard to do.
Well,
the pattern's the same every time.
Well, go to the
Upright.
edge. Yeah, so you can see the horizontal and vertical fine scrolling. It really is amazing. That's to define the screen. It's a big screen with multiple islands, and I think
So we submitted this game, and the only comment back, and so here's one of the pirate ships guarding the island. So you click on that, and now you're back into the pirate scene. So I'm going to load up the next game while I'm talking about this, but those are the different sections of that. The only comment that we had on that one was that it took too long to reinitialize it after you finished the game, and that was it. That was the only comment that was negative. So let's see. I think
Sakoban after.
Sakoban and Yahtzee.
No, Yahtzee was before Sakoban.
Okay, Yahtzee.
Yahtzee I wrote, I know, my senior year of college. So we had been kind of done with programming. College took a lot of time, so we didn't program a lot. But I just decided to do Yahtzee as a real quick game, which was pretty easy to program. This was kind of a neat technique. That's actually a player, and I use string manipulation to actually define those players. So I didn't use that routine that we had from from Computer a long time ago. I just came up with my own thing. And anyway, so this is all graphic 0, but it allowed you to have colors.
Yeah.
I actually used a horizontal interrupt
It says finish.
to change colors there, just to make it a little bit more unique. And the ASCII art was pretty good actually for non-artists. You know, I drew that.
Yeah, so I'm picking which ones, and then
you roll the dice again with the space bar, I think.
so yeah, you needed the keyboard on this one.
Yeah.
And finish, I'll say yes. And then what do I want to apply this to? I'll apply it towards.
So that's
sixes.
actually a player on the right too, the little arrow.
So I got 12 because I got 2 6s.
So anyway, very straightforward game, but it plays Yahtzee. I mean, it does the whole thing.
Yeah, and there's Professor Yahtzee there.
Yep.
So 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, I'm going to just play one more hand here. Place that one, that one.
Yeah, and I actually rolled the dice. I mean, it kind of changes the things. So I wrote this one all by myself. Eric did.
Okay, so anyway, that's Yahtzee. Then there's one final game, and then we'll show you 2 utilities. But we'll do one final game first. Okay, the last game is Sakoban in 1988. So the other ones were written between 82 and 85 or so, or 86. And then this one was a couple years later.
Yeah, so this Sakoban is a game that was originally written for the Atari computer, or no, the PC, I'm sorry, the IBM PC. And when I first started work in 1987, actually in 2 weeks it'll be my 30th anniversary at work. When I started work, we had this game at work, and a few of us would play it at our lunch break. And it's basically, it asking me to enter initials and then enter the level. So I'll enter 1. So this game is all about taking these crates and stacking them in a simulated warehouse. This game plays exactly like the game for the PC, but it's slower and worse graphics. That one had a lot better graphics on the PC, but the gameplay is exactly the same. The puzzles are exactly the same. This one's kind of neat. It's using a real-time clock, and I don't know why we never really used that before.
We did internally, but we never displayed it. We used the clock.
It's a nice feature. The Atari computer had an absolutely perfect real-time clock.
It didn't remember it, but it's from the time we started the...
It was just 3 bytes that constantly moved to generate a clock. So this is keeping track of your steps on the left-hand side. Let's zoom in on this.
Yeah, and this
It's keeping track of your steps on the left, and what's on the right? I don't know what the difference between the steps on the left and the steps on the right.
Oh,
Or how many times you've moved a box. That's the difference.
and this game is neat too. It runs on a disk, so each level is stored as a separate data file on the disk. And there were 56 levels on this game. And I thought originally that Eric had limited it to 56 levels because you can literally only put 64 files on an Atari DOS 2.0. So it was almost stuff when you have the autoron.sys and the DOS.sys, there were like 59 files out of 62 on that thing. But as it turns out, there were only 56 levels on the PC version too. But that's
I may have added a couple. The PC version had a level editor.
Yeah.
And the group at work edited a couple levels. So we may have actually edited some. And I know one level was impossible out of the box. There was a flaw. And this one, I think, has a fixed version of it.
there was a level editor that Eric wrote with this game as well. Now the
It
user
wasn't a separate program, was it?
Yes, it was a separate program. It's called SaveDat.base. But I think what it wasn't meant for the end user. It was just made for you to
Yeah.
make those data files.
Yeah.
But an end user could have done it.
I finished.
All right.
That's 1 out of 56. But these are really hard puzzles. But you've got a level like this to fit. It's so easy to back yourself in and get to a point like this where there's no way I can move this box. I can't push it down. I can't push it left. So anyway, it was for the Atari. This one was put on the internet a long time ago and has some fairly decent usage for it.
This game, all these games that we wrote now are on AtariMania.com, and that's like the ultimate repository for Atari 8-bit games. And this one was put up there a long time ago, along with the ones that were published in Antic. So, and I think Yahtzee was too. But
Yeah, probably.
So, but there were only 5 games that were ever released to the public until a couple weeks ago in 2017.
Okay, let's do a new video for the
Okay.
2 other games. Okay.
Okay, now we're going to load 2 utilities now that we wrote. One is, so this is pretty impressive actually. We wrote a database program that retrieved our high scores, saved and retrieved high scores from a disk drive, and also a database that showed all of our disks and what games were on each disk. Because we had 76 of these treasure chests. Let me show that feature first. So 76 treasure chests, and you could pause
The game
this
starts in 13 minutes.
as it scrolls by. But we had so many games on each disk that we didn't remember which one was which. So we wrote this database program that kept track of it for us. And I think we had a printer by then, so we probably printed this out. But,
Yeah.
But
Was there an option to print it?
No, I don't think so.
Well, I don't know.
Oh yes, well on the track game, I think there were. Okay, so let's just scroll. This is as fast as the Atari could scroll, by the way. Nothing was slowing this down. This is how it looked when you scrolled through a print statement. But we stored all this data on a disk, and you could edit the data. Like we change games on these disks every once in a while. So it says, "That's all, folks." I remember I grabbed that because we had a professor in Eastern Michigan, Professor Ziegler. At the end of his first base or Fortran example that he ever showed, he put "That's all, folks" in there, and I used that on this. But anyway, press R to review the list again. I don't think we'll do that, and press return. Okay, so then we can retrieve high scores. Now this is well. Let me first of all let's view games, alphabetical or sequential lists, and then make alphabetical lists. So I'll do it alphabetically. Here's all the games that we had on all those treasure chests. And it pulled it out of this, I guess the same database. I'm not sure exactly how it was stored, but these are all the games we had. And the alphabetizing of it, I remember we got this machine language bubble sort in one of the magazines, and we put it to use in this application. So look how many games we had, and that's I guess we can admit now.
Yeah, that's when we
Statute of limitations is over, that we pirated probably 99% of these games.
we had a few.
Yeah, so we got them through bulletin board services, or some friends of ours at EMU had a lot of these games too, but look how many games we had. And so we're in the S's and we're up to 600. So we have let's see how many games we
Yeah,
had.
these are, and most of them are games. So
Okay, we had 662 games. Okay, so then retrieving high scores is really neat. So, and we could add new games and we can edit high scores, so I'm not going to show that. But retrieve high score, name of game. Let me type in Galaxian. What happened? Does it take that long to retrieve it? I guess so. Yes, it's the emulator showing that it's retrieving the data off the disk. Okay, so the high score of Galaxian is 26,510 by EEA. So it's really neat.
that's me.
We had that's Eric, and
But
that
you
was
can see
my
all
game.
the high scores.
Yeah, I know. So let's see.
View games and the high scores. And then sequential with high scores.
Yeah, sequential. Okay, so here's all the games. Let's see if we can pause.
It's control 1.
So here's a whole bunch of games. You can see most of them are RRA, EEA, KDA, which is Kurt, Robert, Eric, and then John Weisgerber.
JJW.
And JJW.
Robbie Keane.
Is Robbie Joe Keane, which is Kurt's friend. So we had an EDM is Eric May. He's got 30 on Bumper Ball.
Yeah.
So we had a lot of our friends
Scroll
come
through
over
that a little bit
and play a game or two, and get their names
stop
up on the
and-
high score list.
See if you see it.
So like I said, most of them were us.
We tried to, every time we had a friend over, we had them, JAS,
I don't know who that is.
JMB. I have no idea who most of these are. But anyway, when we had friends over, I've seen like Eric Sendra, our cousin's initials on
Oh,
this.
is that right? He's in
Yeah.
there. Yeah, that's pretty neat. But Eric and I, so there's a high score.
Look, our Leah got 5 on Choplifter. We got our Leah.
ACA.
Yeah, in the top.
Oh yes, we actually made her play Choplifter. That's funny. So anyway, yeah, I wonder why we don't see Jim.
So,
JMA.
but anyway, it was great to keep track of our high scores. We always like to do
And
that.
there's a high score database to this day, and I bet we could compare some of these. We were pretty good at some of these games. We probably have high scores across the Atari community on some of these things. So do I have to let this go all the way through, or
I don't
break
know.
this?
Well, we can load up the next game. That's it.
Okay, that's pretty much it. Okay, so the last thing that we're going to show is a track database that we developed for the Eastern Michigan University.
Hurry up, we got 5 minutes.
Okay.
And you're going to have to drive this one because I have no idea.
Okay, I'll tell. Okay, so this game, or this wasn't a game, it was a utility. It was a track database that we wrote for the athletic director at Eastern Michigan University, who happens to be Gene Smith, who is now the athletic director at Ohio State. Our friend Scott Parks' dad, Bob Parks, was the track coach there, so he got us a meeting with the athletic director at Eastern Michigan, and the athletic director showed us this program that other universities were using, but it was really expensive. He said, "Can you do something like this?" So we literally took down notes and interviewed him and asked what he wanted us to do, and we recreated that, that commercial software. But we showed it to him, I remember, and he didn't really like what the results were, so we just quit. But I'm just going to look at like event results. I'll go to number 6. So you can enter different, and then insert the data diskette and hit return. So now I got to go
This is
to
probably why you didn't like it.
right, I got to go to the emulator now and change disks to disk 1 here and go to the database. And now I can hit return. And it says input the event number to view something. So I'm going to hit 1. Okay, so in this event, wow, we did great against Edwin Moses and Earl Jones, who was also from Eastern Michigan and got a bronze medal in the '84 Olympics, which is right before it. So
In the
Scott
800
Parks,
meters.
Robert Anschuetz, Eric Anschuetz, Earl Jones, and Edwin Moses. And then, so this keeps track of the affiliation, and this has something to do with, real college rules and points you get for being in first place and stuff like that.
Because track meets are not just individual, they're scoring for the university or whoever's involved. So it's a convoluted way of figuring out who wins this track meet over the day. So
you can display results, let's see, into view next 6. Gary Herndon.
a friend of ours.
Yeah, Q to quit, return for cross-country menu, hit return for the outer menu, hit return for the main menu. So I'm in, and
Now
insert
you
the, now you got to insert the program disk, and I'll just do one more thing. I'm getting frozen up here. Okay, so yeah, that's one bad thing about the emulators. You got to go back and forth between the program disk and the data disk. Okay, so starting in, let's see, affiliation data. Now I gotta go, sorry.
That's why the guy didn't like it.
Yeah, because in the real one, you're flipping these. I don't know why in the world we did that, but we had plenty of room on the main disk to do this. So E to edit existing affiliations, code number, I guess I'll just do 1. So there's Eastern Michigan Hurons, Bowen Fieldhouse, EMU, Ypsilanti, Michigan. Point of contact is Bob Parks. So anyway, this was meant for an athletic director to use. This was an early primitive database program that an athletic director would use, and we recreated that on the Atari computer. I think another...
Okay, the battery ran out on the last segment, so but it was pretty much over anyway. We were doing the track program. So just one last final thing, it's halftime of the Michigan game. So. These were the original floppies that we used, 5 basic programs that have all of our games on them. Side B has those 3 that Eric just found, Piracy, Ramsey's Revenge, and Phoenix. But the other ones, these were copied over. I mean, we really used these back 30 years ago on the Atari computer, and the amazing thing is they still work. Oh, so one funny thing was on the track program, I actually had to slice a hole in the floppy sleeve on one because the track disc itself was warped. It was bent in half or whatever. So I actually sliced a hole in the back. See, the inside of these is just a little vinyl disc inside of this outside plastic case on a 5 1/4 inch floppy. Yeah, so I cut the back open and slid literally the thing out of it, and then swapped the side. And another funny thing, let me point out, when you bought them, they were only supposed to be used on the front side, and they came pre-notched with this, and this was a Write Protect, and you would put a sticker on that. If you wanted to, write protected, you would put a sticker on it. It looks best there, yeah. So to use it on the back side, we always had to use these paper punchers to punch this notch, and then you could use the back side. So you can see that side's like a circle. Otherwise, it would be Write Protected. And this side is a square. They only came with that one side notch because I guess they didn't guarantee that the backside would work. But when I was copying off these floppies, all the other things, and I copied all of our Pokey, which is a music chip, songs, and these koala art and things. We had done some of them too. That's why I wanted some of the art and everything. But I copied every one of the floppies, and the floppies are so old that some of the residue from the actual disc was coming off on the read heads of the Atari floppy drive, and so I had to actually 3 or 4 times take the whole thing apart and use rubbing alcohol to clean the heads. And I remember throwing out at least one disk drive and maybe more because they didn't work, but I never remember trying to clean the heads. So that may have been the only problem that we had with those things. And like I said, I got it working. It wasn't reading it anymore, and I cleaned the heads and it started reading them again. Well, so that wraps up our demonstration of all these games. But the good thing is we have them all. There were a few lost to history. There was a race game, a Detroit Grand Prix race game that we never. It was a lot like, what was the game? Night Driver arcade game. Our 280 Zap. One of these pylon things where you climb or drive through there, and then we have one more. Maybe I can't even remember any other games. That was the only game we really. Yeah, that's only almost finished. We almost finished that game and we lost it because we never transferred it off the cassette to the disc because the cassette player was even less reliable than the disc drive. Yeah, we don't remember any other games that were near completion. Yep. So we pretty much showed you all of them, other than this racing game that was complete. And so those were all written from 1982 to about 1988 was the last one with Sakoban. So in that 6-year period, we had gone from high school to college and wrote all those games and made some money. We sold 3 for $400 and probably. Or 2 for $400 and 3 for $200. So that's $800 plus $600, like $1,400 we made on all that. So. Yep. All right. That's it.